start off this Bellatrix look, I am just going to prime my lids with a really light concealer and then blend it out with a foundation brush. All of Bellatrix's features are very hollowed out and are very distinctive, so I want to try and capture that today with some blush. I'm using it to create the kind of bags under my eyes, accentuate the purples, and make it look like my eyes have been this way for a very long time. So by using a red blush before I use any shadows, it just gives that sort of color peeking out. And like I haven't slept in days, or in her case, I've been in a prison for 14 years. So I'm using a liquid blush under my foundation today and blending it out because she does have some color to her cheeks, especially after she breaks out of prison. Her color kind of comes back to her face, but I didn't want it to be so overt, like if I put it on top of the skin. So I'm putting it underneath so the foundation will cover most of it. Then I'm going in with a dark brown. This is just to contour the eye sockets. You don't need a whole lot of color. You just want to use your shadows to create those different distinctions of the eye shape and make everything look really sunken in. After you've blended that out, just go on top of the lid with another brown shade. This one is just slightly lighter to give us more of that distinct look between the socket and the eyelid. You want just a little bit of highlight so it creates this kind of bug eye, like very big, exaggerated features. She has a lot of those, especially her eyes. They are very distinct. So I'm just blending this all out so it looks natural instead of looking like makeup. And then I went into the inner corners as well. Now I'm going in with a brown shadow. You can use black if you want, but really I wanted this to look worn in. It's been on for a while, so I used a brown pencil, went over the lids, and gave just a slight wing to connect it to the lower lash, which I use this pencil on as well. I went just under my waterline with it because I'm going to blend and smudge this all out. To give it even more of a kind of grungy look, but it also helps with making the eyes look a little bit bigger, a little more dramatic, and give you that kind of like wide eye Bellatrix look. Same thing with the lashes. I didn't want anything too dramatic, so I just used a regular mascara, nothing overly volumizing, and then threw a couple individual lashes on the very ends of my eyelids just to give it a little bit of fullness. And then going in with my palest foundation, I am just putting this on and blending it with a brush. You can kind of see how that red is still going to poke through underneath this foundation, but it's just going to add more of an effect than be a really noticeable color. Especially with around the eyes, it just accentuates those bags. Normally we try and cover them up, but today we're going to make them look bigger. So I'm going to take a dark red and purple shadow and just accentuate the underneath of my eyes more, make it look like I haven't slept in days, make it look like I've been thinking and plotting for days. And then I am contouring. So I did a really sharp contour to my nose because she does have a very thin, pointy nose. So I really focused on getting into the bridge of my nose and bringing that up into my eye sockets and defining the tip of my nose as well. You can do this with a dark brown. You can also use gray depending on which version of Bellatrix you're doing. If you're doing her more in Azkaban, you're going to want to do more grays because she's a bit more malnourished and a bit more spooky looking. I decided to do more of when she comes back to a Hogwarts sort of look, so kind of in the middle of her timeline. But then I just blended that out with a big fluffy brush and moved on to the face. Again, we're going to do a lot of contouring. So I am hollowing out my cheeks. I did a lot of layers of this, did a really deep contour and then blended it out, added more to the hollows and brought it down my chin just so I look almost skeletal. This is really your time to play around and play with your face shape. I have a really round face, so I have to contour a lot more to get those sharp angles. But I did my temples and my forehead as well, just because when we do the hair portion, it's going to become really obvious that the forehead's not part of it if you don't contour. So I blended that all out with a clean brush and then added some more concealer to the parts I wanted to re-highlight, like the middle of my nose, underneath my brow bone, my chin, and my jawline. I would definitely recommend everybody highlight the jawline and contour it that way because she does have very strong bone structure there. Then I took a clean powder brush and just went over everything to make sure it was nice and blended. Then I moved on to the lips. I didn't have a red pencil, but I did have this kind of dark reddish purple. So I lined my lips with that to give them a little bit of definition. This is Heroin from MAC. You don't have to do anything with overlining. I just wanted to give myself a base for my lipstick to make sure that it didn't bleed too much. And this pencil is really good at keeping that in check. And then I went in with this kind of brick red color. This is from NYX. It's one of their liquid suedes. And I added a thin layer first and then kind of played around with it because her lipstick is definitely smudgy at times. So I used my finger to kind of take off any excess product and smudge it a little bit in the corners. And then I took a foundation brush and just tapped over those smudged areas so that it would look like it was kind of wiped off, but not really. Just kind of lessen the pigment a little bit and get more of her kind of crazed look. Then I went in with my eyebrows. I took some brown powder and just filled them in, made them very arched and very evil looking. Really, all you need to do for an evil brow is add a really big arch and a thin tail. It works 95% of the time. And make them as dark as possible or as dark as your look calls for. So I filled those in and I did add a little bit of a pomade to them because they were just a little bit too warm compared to the rest of my hair. So I would have done those a little bit darker had I known how they were going to look on camera. So now for the hair, the night before I rolled my hair with wet rollers so that I would get lots of curls like hers. You can always get a wig, but I decided to just use my natural hair instead of getting a whole new wig. And then I clipped in my extensions. These are Bellamy extensions I've had for a really long time, but I don't use very often. So I curled all of those with my curling wand with the smallest barrel that I have. It's not the exact same size as my natural hair, but she has lots of different curl patterns and lengths. So I thought this would work well. So I added a bunch of them because I wanted to have as much volume as possible. So I used a 4 weft, a 3 weft, and I did have a 2 weft, but I decided not to use it. But you can always add as many extensions as you want because her hair just gets bigger as the movies go on. Now this is where you can kind of play with the look. She has a couple different hairstyles. I did this kind of half up, half down one that I saw on one of the promo shoots for the movie. So I pulled up the top layer of my hair and just added a little elastic to it to keep it up and pulled some of my blonde out because she does have some black and white hair during certain parts of the movies and series. So once I had that up, I just pulled it tight. The back of my head is no one's business but my own. But I teased up the hair a little bit to make it look even more like hers. And that's really it. This look is super simple and easy. It's a good last minute costume. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And I will see you in the next one.